Welcome to Reading the Bible with Pastor. Today we're on John chapter 18. We are now starting to make our way to the cross here, and starting with 18 we're going to encounter the betrayal of Jesus. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kidron, where there was a garden which he and his disciples entered. This is the Garden of Gethsemane, or the Mount of Olives, and is on the east side of the Temple Mount, and with the brook Kidron, the Kidron Valley, in between. And during the Passover, whenever they would be making sacrifices, this stream, the small stream, would run red because of the blood of the animals. We'll continue with verse 2. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. So a good-sized force to arrest Jesus is coming. Then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground, showing that in his divine presence the evil that is before him knows and is affected by his presence. So he asked them again, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken. "Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me?" Jesus makes a reference to the cup, the suffering that he is going to endure, and the death on the cross. He must do it because it is the Father's will. So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him. First they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had advised the Jews that it would be expedient that one man should die for the people. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple, that is probably John, the writer of this gospel. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watch at the door and brought Peter in. The servant girl at the door said to Peter, "You also are not one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the servants and officers had made a charcoal fire, because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them, standing and warming himself. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered him, "I have spoken only openly to the world. I have always taught in the synagogues and in the temple, where all Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me. What I said to them, they know what I said." When he had said these things, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If what I said is wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But if what I said is right, why do you strike me?" Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. This action by the servant there to strike Jesus is actually wrong according to court proceedings at the time. He's not supposed to do this, and in fact does it wrongly because what Jesus says is true. He has spoken openly about who he is. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. So they said to him, "You also are not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Peter again denied it. and at once a rooster crowed. This is Peter's denial, and he in fact denies even the relative, the man who he cut his ear off. And it reflects what was said in John chapter 13, starting at verse 37. Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus answered, Will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. Even in Peter's faith at that time, he was not able to continue to confirm and confess that he was a follower of Christ. Here, he would fulfill that prophecy that he would deny Christ. We will later see how Jesus handles this moment in Peter's life of that denial of him 3 times. We'll pick up next time with John chapter 18, starting at verse 28.